Something was ringing nearby. An alarm clock? I tried to stimulate my muddy mind, but quickly gave up. Darkness greeted me as I opened my eyes, save for a single ray of light coming from outside, shining on the back of a crude office chair. Am I at the office? I then remembered how I had passed out after celebrating with Marco. On one hand, that was a stupid thing to do. On the other, I realized it might have been the first time I'd ever done something like that, so I let out a small laugh. The ringing was still going. I finally realized it was a phone. Specifically, my phone. Apparently, I'd passed out under my desk, and my phone was ringing on top of it. I considered just letting it ring, but it might be Risa, or it might be Chris, who was in the exact opposite situation to me. I sluggishly raised the upper half of my body, then I fumbled for my phone before grabbing it. Its screen was so bright in the darkness that I couldn't help but squint my eyes and turn away. Even though it kept ringing, there was no sign of Marco waking up, though he probably wasn't in the office. I got slightly worried about the possibility of him having passed out somewhere outside. I accepted the call without checking who it was from and put the phone to my ear. "Hey, mister." Shivers ran down my spine. I could feel my stomach shriveling up. But that was definitely not because of the alcohol. This was caused by a memory inside me that I couldn't forget. Did you get drunk celebrating your victory? Barton. It was Barton who had permanently changed my relationship with the Outer District 8 years ago, and whose dream I had crushed 4 years ago by defeating Avalon. He had been the only one to escape from the legal consequences of that defeat. It seems your investments in protection have been fruitful. I wonder how you financed all that. All of a sudden he sobers up. You want to know how I know about that? I always gather information diligently, especially when it comes to someone I've been crossing paths with. Had the office been wiretapped? I shivered, but Barton continued. Please don't go thinking I did something as unrefined as wiretapping your phone. Aren't you the one who told me about your plans? Huh, I said in reply. The realization cut through my mind like a pebble through a mud puddle. No way. Did you invest in my fund? I've earned a pretty good amount of money thanks to you. While I was at it, I got to hear all about your personal philosophy regarding investments. That was one of the perks of doing that. The bigger the investments I received, the more that person had nagged me, wanting to inquire about my investing strategies. Goldsmith. And here I had been worried about being found out right off the bat. I breathed in through my nose, slowly exhaling through my mouth. Going opposite the losers and riding on the coattails of those who were winning was one of the ironclad rules of the business world. Thanks to my victory over Avalon, funds and information just came to me on their own, which in turn increased my odds of success. Anyone can surmise that. This is a good example of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Funds and information had indeed come to me. For Barton, who was rationally personified, there apparently had been no reason not to invest in my fund. But to think that he would actually do it... Though I couldn't say I was calm, at least I no longer felt intoxicated. What do you want? Oh, right. I had an important matter to discuss with you. Hang on, I'm sending you a file. This sounded dubious, I thought to myself, and then I heard what seemed to be Barton using another terminal. I could hear clicking sounds. This time around, your fund has made a really extraordinary profit, right? Something like 30 or 40 billion. Those are sums you can see in the rankings of the richest people in the world. Most of their fortune is merely the estimated value of their company's shares. You're probably the first one in history to possess this much in cold hard cash, aside from, say, the pharaohs of ancient Egypt. What's your point? I heard a small sound, and right afterwards the tablet against my ear notified me of a new message. I sent you the file. The message only had one picture attached. What's this? I'd love to ask you to open it right away, but I have a request before you do. A request? I would like you to lend me everything you've just earned, with no interest for an indefinite period and no questions. Huh. Despite all this, I'm still an investor, though I have a feeling you won't dislike my offer. Barton said that as he was apparently setting up in his chair. Judging from the absence of any delay on my line and of any background noise, not even echo, he was probably in a room in a high-class hotel somewhere on the lunar surface. I squinted at the artificial light coming from the building next door and opened the attached files onto my tablet. I was somewhat curious. How was he planning to get me to take such a crazy offer seriously? Which is why I was caught completely unawares. Do you get what I'm hinting at? That's... My breathing had become painful, and I once again started to feel nauseous. My head was throbbing. I felt dizzy. My heart was beating like crazy, and I felt a pounding near my temple. The hand holding my tablet was trembling, but I couldn't take my eyes off it. It's one of your precious friends from long ago, right? Barton said that somewhat mockingly. Though her hair was shorter and she looked more grown up than she did in my memories, there was no mistaking it. It was Hagana. Where did you get... I took it just now. Huh. She glared daggers at me after I did, though. I couldn't understand the meaning behind those words. Or rather, I didn't want to. Even though it wasn't supposed to feel pain, my brain hurt. It felt as if my skull had been cracked open and someone had started fiddling with my brain. Now let's talk. As I tried desperately to swallow the acid welling up in my throat, I clung tightly to my tablet for fear of dropping it. Now that you've seen the details of this offer, I'm going to give you my room number. He said that as if to clarify who had the upper hand here. I grabbed the wastebasket almost without thinking and no longer able to hold it in, threw up in it. I had been on my way towards unreached heights. My joy, mingled with the alcohol I'd drunk, was coming out mixed with gastric acid, burning my esophagus on the way up. There's no time for puking. Make your decision. I'm a busy man, you know? Investment was about trumping people's plans. Barton had chosen a strategy using that principle taken to its limits. I just had no means of fighting back. Why? What do you mean? Why are you in Hagana? I'll explain that during our negotiations, too. I puked again at the amusement in his voice. I wanted to kill him. I wanted to kill him right now. Also, I'm sure you're able to understand why I need all that money. What? Why do you think I've stayed hidden for all these years? That was because Avalon had been... The realization then hit me. Don't tell me you're planning to... I am. I haven't given up on that dream of mine. I'm planning to take down Emerald Industries. Was he insane? I didn't get it. But there was one thing I did understand. Well, I don't need your sympathy, though I'd be flattered if you felt any. For now, I'm just bragging about having information you can't get anywhere else. So what are you going to do, mister? Oh, by the way, I'm merely borrowing that money. I intend to pay it back, so please don't misunderstand me on that point. I'm an investor, after all, not a thief. Please don't mistake me for one. Though if I go bankrupt, you'll have to give up on getting that money back. Fuck you. I said that without thinking. Barton laughed. Last question. If you agree to negotiate with me, would you like to know the secret behind that photograph along with my room number? I might have been crying right now. I don't know whether it was because I was feeling frustrated or pitiful. It might even have been because I was happy at the prospect of seeing Hagana. I cried unabashedly, feeling as though I didn't really have a choice here. Mister? That word coming from my tablet was full of irritation. Even if I knew he was merely putting on an act for the sake of negotiating, I couldn't argue back. I'll do it. I'll negotiate. I see. I'm glad I get to see you again. I'm in room 5002 at the Royal Central Hotel. I think your former employer once had this room too. That's Eleanor's. Oh, by the way, I trust you, but make sure you come alone. Also, please change into proper clothing before coming. That room ain't cheap. I want it to get dirty. Barton said that before ending the call. In that instant, everything was so silent that I felt as if I had been thrown to the ends of the lunar surface. Hagana. As I whispered that word, my memories of 8 years ago came flooding back. Hagana, Hagana, Hagana. She was impertinent and kept calling people idiots, even though she had silly moments herself. She dozed off like a cat in sunny spots, and like a child, she never ridiculed people's dreams. I stood up, grabbed the wastebasket along with a change of clothes I'd prepared in case I had to stay at the office overnight, and unsteadily headed for the shared restrooms. The corridor had fallen silent and nobody seemed to be around. I had no idea what time it was either. I washed my face, rinsed my mouth, and emptied the wastebasket's contents into the respective garbage bags and threw them away down the trash chute. I changed my clothes and made my exit, staggering out of the building. It was somewhat chilly outside. In a stranger street bereft of pedestrians, I boarded a taxi that was drowsily waiting for clients and pointed at the direction of the Royal Centre Hotel. In a daze, I entered the hotel with its warm light and its high-class staff. When I gave them the room number, they reverently guided me around. A dream. This was all a dream. As I kept telling myself that, I knocked on the door of room 5002. What if the golden-haired Eleanor were the one to emerge? But that didn't happen. The one behind the door was Barton Cladvison, who hadn't changed a bit since the last time I'd seen him. Thanks for coming. Barton said this to me as he showed me in. Of course, the arrangement of the room had not changed. A bottle of alcohol and a glass were in front of the sofa I was shown to, indicating Barton had been drinking. To celebrate our reunion? Barton, who was seated facing me, raised his glass, but I didn't even raise my gaze. Well, I guess I can figure out what you're feeling. Anyway, let's get down to business. Barton gulped down the glass's contents and stood up. He knocked on the door to the main bedroom, in which Eleanor had put a flag with a coat of arms. There was no answer or reaction, but Barton knocked once more and then opened the door. He peered into the room and said something. The sound was absorbed, perhaps because of the thick carpeting, so I couldn't hear what he had said. But what had my heart beating like crazy was the fact that Barton had pulled it back, not closing the door, but rather leaving it open. I even forgot to breathe as I looked through the open door. Barton motioned respectfully toward the doorway with his arm. I had been waiting for this moment for 8 years. Someone came out of the room. It was Hagana. She hadn't gotten much taller, but her hair was cut aggressively shorter. She didn't have that air of unsteady youth she used to have, but that same expression from 8 years ago still showed strongly on her face. She was pretty, like a well-polished obsidian stone. Hagana. I called out her name as if I was muttering, but Hagana did not react. She did not even direct her gaze towards me. But it wasn't like the bluntness of before. She was inexpressive, like a doll. I have a feeling you may have much to talk about, but could we first deal with my business? Barton said this, placing his hand on Hagana's shoulder. I felt like an extremely fragile treasure of mine had been touched without my permission. Hagana didn't resist, but simply furrowed her brow in silent displeasure and turned away. I stared at the sight, so stunned that someone could easily have taken me for an idiot. I met her on Earth by coincidence, you see, something like 3 years ago. Barton directed his gaze towards Hagana, who was by his side. He ended up naturally in a posture where he could smell Hagana's hair. Hagana put up no resistance at all. After a small sigh, she uttered this briefly. 2 years ago. Oh, that's right. So we met 2 years ago. Isn't this enough? I cooperated with you. She twisted herself out from under Barton's arm to free herself of it before responding wearily. Barton, who had kept his arm in the same position after letting go of Hagana's shoulder, shrugged before answering. But I do think he wants you to be here with him. But I don't feel like it. It was like being punched in the face. Not that I had any business thinking that someone I'd searched for 8 years would come to see me out of the blue just because she wanted to. Barton looked at me once more before shrugging. Hagana turned away swiftly, trying to go back to the main bedroom. Hagana! Without thinking, I yelled her name. Hagana stopped in her tracks, looking at me slightly over her shoulder. But her eyes were not at all what I was hoping for. I couldn't even sense scorn in her eyes. It was as though she lost any interest in me whatsoever. With that, Hagana promptly closed the heavy door, like she was closing her heart to me. It was, much to my displeasure, a very nostalgic way of closing a door. She's as moody as a cat. Barton raised his hands to shoulder height and returned to the sofa. So where do you want to start? Looks like you've got a lot you want to ask. I looked at Barton, nearly stuck in a daze. I'll give you the fundamental data. Saying this, he took the brown envelope from the rack near him and threw it at me. Inside there were a few documents. I took out the documents mechanically and looked at him. They were Hagana's picture and personal history. It was pure coincidence that I met her 3 years ago. Even saying I met her is not accurate. To be exact, I just happened to catch sight of her. On a whim, I was taking part in a meeting of academics on Earth. Back then, I still needed to remain hidden, so I could not call out to her. I listened to his explanation without saying a word. I was utterly unable to think. The data before my eyes was simply inscribing facts in my brain like a machine. According to the data Barton gave me, Hagana was on Earth. She'd been going to college in a country I didn't know, graduated so fast even Chris would be dumbfounded, and had a PhD. Said her degree was in mathematics. We met again 1 year after that. This time I approached her with a clear intent in mind. I glanced at Barton. Of course there was no way he would falter at that. A few people had come from the lunar surface to do headhunting. I was one of them. I muttered unconsciously. She's a prodigy, at least to people who want to think that you can bend future risk to your will via mathematics. I flipped through the documents in my hand. The keywords I caught sight of somehow felt nostalgic. E.J. Rochberg claims to have created the Holy Grail, but she and no one else is the one who created its core concept, though initially she didn't write it in a way that could be used for making money. Still, there are people who notice these things and try to apply them in another field. I think she herself knew it could be applied. If she didn't do it herself, it might be because she is not interested in money-making. Copula. For some reason, this keyword made me think of very delicate crystal works. So, did Chris know about Hagana? For the most part, people from the lunar surface who went out of their way to hire her on Earth were the late starters in the competition for producing Holy Grails. In order to regain their position quickly, they needed to hire more talented brains after all. However, she hardly ever met with anyone. Barton sipped at his drink. Well, then again, that's understandable. After all, they came to ask her to create a more refined copy of a product someone developed, and the only consideration they could offer was money. Given her personal history, of course she couldn't accept that. With that, I lowered my eyes to the document. Hagana's name was written as Anne Haag. Now I understood why she had a weird name like Hagana. So if you don't see it, Anna Haag. However, it said that Anna Haag died at age 14. Huh? My brain was swollen from the alcohol and from a reality it didn't wish for, and it was struck by one needle. Anna Haag's features showed beautiful black hair, and the notes on her profile indicated she had a definite affinity for mathematics. Hagana was a replacement for this girl, a finely crafted copy. Her profile indicated that her foster parents both had a history of mental instability and had been institutionalized. Every time some insensible jerk came to knock on her door, she would turn her heart to stone. This was hard on her. You mean to say you're different? I was tortured by the memory of him holding Hagana's shoulder, and I couldn't prevent myself from running my mouth. At my question, Barton just laughed. Did you forget how I do investment, mister? I strive to understand just what the other party wants and needs. This is why she is here. My eyes wandered on their own to Barton's right arm. The arm that hugged Hagana's shoulder. Hagana did not reject this. Now, it should be his left shoulder because it was this arm. There's some sort of mistake there. I don't know if it's a translation, a typo, or what. Well, at first, even holding a conversation was a hardship in and of itself. Once you get used to it, you understand she has a lot of emotional depth. It's quite endearing. I was just on the verge of crying. Was it possible to suffer such a defeat? On the same day I'd been so sure I was about to achieve my dream of 8 years ago, I ended up facing this. And I signed a contract with her. What kind? I asked this, in a token attempt at resisting, but Barton merely shrugged. That only concerns her and me. I glared at Barton. As you know, my personal goal is Emerald Industries. As for her own goal, she should decide whether she wants to talk about it. If I were to blabber about it, how could there be a trust? Well, whatever her goal is, her talent is quite rare. It is worth paying a hefty consideration for. On my side, I tried creating funds for my project on my own, but I was still anxious, you see. So when you put out an ad saying you were starting a protection investment fund, I thought the gods had smiled upon me. It was one of the few sources of money from which one could expect tremendous returns. But you didn't invest in it, did you? Of course. Barton uttered these words with a collected tone, slouching down on the sofa. I was certain that the lunar surface's real estate market was a bubble, but even I could not predict when the bubble would burst. Besides, history has proven time and again that the market can remain unstable for very long periods of time. In the past, very wise economists and investors who had predicted bubbles got caught in that trap and died. If so, taking the risk by myself would be stupid. I only had to let a challenger such as you take the risks in my place. Each time it happens, I get my hands on their vulnerabilities. I'm fine as long as one of them succeeds. His complacent smile was the smile of a master schemer. But you are the hero of the lunar surface after all, mister. Your main fund has good clientele. Even without the protection affair, I was still planning from the start to use her as a lever. It was a good thing I increased the number of superfluous comrades in order to gather funds. I could find no words to say to the man in front of me. At any rate, the capital I want to borrow from you won't expose you to reckless danger. I just want to borrow it for a few years, or maybe it'll take longer than that. Can't guarantee I'll be able to give you any interest or even pay you back the full amount, though. What's the consideration? My pride as an investor allowed me to utter this question. There was no way he'd say it was just this short meeting, because I could still get up and leave whenever I wanted. The cancellation of my contract with her. What? I will set her free, though I can't guarantee that. Once free, she'll go with you. Since she comes from quite a miserable country, she's well aware of what someone with money can do. I told her that if she acted in a way that would stray from my plans, there would be some consequences. I'll call the police. On what charges? When she is going out on her own quite often. There are no facts pointing to coercion, and I am not saying this is rhetoric to escape responsibility. These are the facts. I am not coercing her. We are just doing this in accordance with our mutual benefit. I told her from the start I would have no mercy if she strayed from my plan. Besides, she issued a similar warning to me. Making an enemy out of someone as talented as her would be quite a problem for people leading a life such as mine. This is just business. Business we agreed upon. Don't lie. I was yelling. What benefit is there for her in following your plan? You'll have to ask her that. Barton remained collected. Was this an act, or a negotiation technique? Or was it a composure of someone in a match that couldn't even be considered a match? But you have regrets, mister. You loved her, didn't you? And for 8 years. You're so naive. I threw the documents at him. Even when I knew that it was akin to admitting defeat, I couldn't stop myself. Those who succeed in investment generally have a reptile-like mindset, but you didn't change at all. Anymore. What do you mean, anymore? Barton shoved away the scattered documents, taking his glass in hand and contemplating the amber liquid in it. I was at a loss for words. I had reverted back to being the kid I was 8 years ago. I had nothing but documents to throw at Barton. My project is in its final phase. With the funds you were supposed to gain, Emerald Industries will soon fall into my hands. Barton uttered the words, or maybe. She might return to your arms. If I didn't clutch my teeth, I'd end up crying. Bring me one set of the paperwork to transfer the administrative rights to the bank account. In exchange, I will give you the key card to this room. I paid the rent for 3 months. Oh, I forgot. there is an option to this trade. If you cooperate actively in my project, I will persuade her to stay 3 months in this hotel. Don't screw with me. Don't screw with me! Even with me yelling, Barton's expression didn't change in the slightest. This is kindness, but think about it for a bit. If we could bend EI to our wills... I don't remember if this was a term we were given, I'm drawing a blank here. If we could bend EI to our wills and take control of it, this thing you guys are doing, what was it? The project would experience a tremendous boost. After all, designing a new city is an easy business. Barton was a man who, for investment's sake, would keep watch with binoculars to find a supposedly non-existent board member-only cafeteria, and who would buy the employees of a university hamburger shop in order to investigate the school's brain drain. He had investigated me thoroughly, and he was aware to a creepy extent of what people held as precious. See through people's intentions, Barton had said 8 years ago. I don't think this is a bad deal, really. I don't like deals where both parties don't profit somehow. I couldn't talk back. I couldn't talk back no matter what. Kevin Lath didn't sell me out, right? That was his contract with me. I told him ahead of time that I would help him raise immense funds and that when the time came, I would escape alone. But I never expected to find a kindred spirit in the goal of crushing Emerald Industries. Barton said this a bit sadly. Don't say it like that, I thought. How could he speak in a way that made you feel he had a human side to him? It wanted to cry so hard. Please, at least be an inhumane monster. Okay, there's gotta be a word missing here. No. Please, at least be an inhumane monster. Be as cold-blooded as a machine. If so, then I would be able to accept my defeat. But the man in front of me was merely selfish to the bone, a man chasing his dreams. This was a duel between two humans, and I could feel how thoroughly defeated I was. The other day I went to see him, and to deliver a little something for him. Kevin just shrugged, mister. Barton shifted his gaze from the amber liquid to me. Become an adult. I tried talking back, but no words came out. I clenched my fist, but I couldn't move. I tried glaring at him, but I couldn't sustain his gaze. Barton sighed slightly, averting his gaze to have another sip of his drink, and extended his right hand to his side. He pointed at the door. I will wait until tomorrow at noon. I'm counting on you. I don't remember how I got downstairs after that. I think my heart must have been fried out as I passed the main bedroom where Hagana had been. I came back to my senses after crossing the roundabout in front of the hotel and reaching a street with very few people. Hell. First Mark opened his mouth. Risa and Suro were here. Why? I eavesdropped on your phone call. What about Hagana? It was Risa who asked this question. Her expression could have been angry or sad. I realized a little later that she was stiff with tension. She was there. She looked fine. Did you call the police? Suro uttered those words. He said she wasn't being coerced. But... more importantly, hell, are you okay? Huh? Risa touched my cheek with her hand. You're as white as a sheet. What happened? I tried to contradict her, but I stopped. I was as good as dead. I had been plunging forward with an embarrassing innocence, gushing about reaching an untrodden land. And there's your other reminder that he did this with his left hand. But before that victory was completely mine, a giant came who'd been looking ahead and acting. He showed me what was precious to me, and tried to take everything from me. And this really precious thing, Hagana, was hugged around the shoulders by Barton, and she said she didn't want to see me. She looked at me like I was some stone on the roadside. If there was any value to my existence, I'd love for someone to tell me what it was. What could it be besides being good at guessing the rise and fall of stock prices? I cast my eyes down, biting my lip and laughing for some reason. I heaved a sigh and could only utter these words. I won't to sleep a bit. I could tell that Reese was about to say something, but in the end she didn't say anything. Instead, she exchanged looks with Suro and Margot, and then she said, "There are empty rooms at the church." "Sorry." After that, Suro called over a taxi that was in front of the hotel and had me get in alone. I thought only Reese was capable of such consideration. The three of them sent me off, and I let myself sink into the leather-covered seat. I realized that when one was too sad, it was impossible to even cry. The freedom of having tens of billions of rules was, beyond the vastness of itself, being free. That was important. With that much, you could do anything. That was because you could afford to pour it into even unprofitable businesses. It was completely at odds with the situation where big companies banded together and accomplished things at a sluggish pace, while adjusting each other's interests. With tremendous power, you could do whatever you wanted, however you wanted. When Barton was talking about Egypt's pharaoh, his words must have been quite close to the truth. One could even build a pyramid on the lunar surface. Letting go of that power would be, quite frankly, stupid. But what was more important, 30 or 40 billion wolves, or Hagana? Finding a girl who looked just like Hagana and buying her was probably possible. Earth held a population of several billion people, so it should even be possible to create someone who looked like Hagana from 8 years ago. But she would not be Hagana. She would be someone who looked like her. What would happen if, because I clung to these tens of billions of moles, I didn't give Barton the account? Would Hagana be in danger? Maybe she would. Maybe she wouldn't. Somehow I thought, somewhere in my heart, that Barton wouldn't go that far. Even so, more than anything else, the thing I couldn't ignore was that from Hagana's point of view, it would undoubtedly look like I'd chosen money over her. For Hagana, who had been bought away from her homeland with money, there was no need to even think about the significance of such an act. At the same time, I remembered Hagana as she was looking at me in the hotel. I remembered how Barton had gripped her shoulder. Even if I handed that fortune over to Barton, was it even a possibility that Hagana would come back to my side? Wouldn't she think I was trying to win her favor by paying money? Damned if I did, damned if I didn't. Either way, I had no choice but to taste utter despair. But in the event I did pay, then at least Hagana's safety would be guaranteed. Besides, I could always show her that I did something for her sake. I would be able to show that to myself. Barton had a mind on par with the devil. He had this uncanny ability to see through people's thoughts and intentions. He was able to see in one instant what was precious to a person and what their standards were. He understood even better than I did that 30 billion rules lost their value if they were protected by abandoning Hagana. I would regret that forever for sure. I was still in love with Hagana even now. I wanted her to laugh and be happy at hearing my words. I wanted her to show her shy side, and I wanted to get in fights with her, then make up with her. And I wanted for the two of us to quietly contemplate the secrets of the world that Hagana and I held in our linked hands 8 years ago. If people learned that I rejected Chris's and Eleanor's proposals for this, I'd likely be a laughingstock. But that's how things were. If I simply looked at the reality before my eyes, there was a high chance that paying 30 billion wolves would end up being useless. The moody Hagana did not resist being held by her shoulder. And there was that look in her eyes when she looked at me. I guess my behavior towards Hagana must have wounded her deep in her heart. If there was one thing I could do, I suppose it was to apologize to her. Or I could actively participate in Barton's plan and get him to ask Hagana to stay at the hotel for 3 months. During those 3 months, I could beg her for forgiveness. I figured those were my only 2 options. But what if she ignored me? What then? If I lost the person I loved most in my life after throwing away the biggest profit of my life, I wasn't confident I could keep on living. After all, I had done my best until now just for that goal. I couldn't bring myself to think there would be value in living if that happened. Pathetic. So pathetic I couldn't even cry. Obsession killed people. One should immediately back out of an investment that showed no promise. Even though I could put this truth into practice in the investment world, doing so in the real world proved impossible. There was no way I could forget the time I had spent with Hagana 8 years ago. I could not give up completely. Barton had been so composed because he knew it would turn out like this. I would pay 30 billion rules and prove my sincerity to Hagana. Even if I knew it was useless, no matter what, this was the only path for me. He knew that I had no choice but to do this. After a sleepless night at the church, and before what any computer would recognize as mourning, I called Marco and explained everything to him. I can only say I was sorry, and that no matter how harshly he opposed it, I didn't plan on changing the conclusion I had come to. However, Marco only said 2 words: I understand. He did not even complain. He only asked me, "You're going to keep on doing good work, right?" I felt sort of let down and could only answer with a vague, "Yeah." Or could it be that Marco thought this was a joke? As I started worrying, I received an email. "We are still young. Let's recover that loss someday." I found myself gripping my tablet with both hands, and I pressed it against my forehead. After that, I called Sasha and had her prepare a set of various documents. Obviously, Sasha questioned me in detail, worried that I had been coerced, but this was not a threat. I was merely being told the price of fixing my mistake 8 years ago. After all, wouldn't a lot of people give everything they had if they were told they could buy a time machine? After explaining this to Sasha, I went through the procedures for changing the bank account to which these tremendous funds were to be wired, and I headed to Barton's place with the documents in hand. At the church, Risa looked worried but said nothing. I merely said, "It's all right," and those words were enough for her to refrain from saying anything. "That's a wise decision." Barton said that after checking the documents. "But that doesn't mean I despise you or anything. I'll take care of the loan from E.J. Roachberg. I'll also send their share to your investors. I wouldn't want that account to be frozen because of a lawsuit over some small change. After that, make sure to tell me about the different accounts." "Here's the card key." Barton handed it to me. It was the key to a hotel room that would normally cost over 100,000 rubles a night. But I was aware this was only the price for nouveau riche show-offs, and the like who spent only one night there. People who were the real thing and rented the room for a long period of time paid only a tenth of that, or sometimes didn't have to pay at all. So basically that made me a top-tier show-off. I had paid tens of billions of rubles for the card key to a room paid off in 3 months in advance. 100 million rubles per night. That was a price worthy of being an award just for its sheer brutality. On top of that, if I messed up, I might end up being its only occupant starting tonight. It was so pitiful that it was almost funny. I have one more bit of good news for you. I slowly raised my gaze to meet his. She's completely penniless. She has no assets. Now that she's back on the lunar surface for the first time in 8 years, I doubt she'll just up and disappear. That being said, you know how she is. She might just grab the furniture and make a run for it. I won't bear the responsibility if she does that, just so you know. I said nothing in return. As expected, Barton winced a little before taking a deep breath. Am I being cast as the villain here? You're asking that. Why do you even care? My voice finally came out hoarsely. It's to use that as a reference in case something happens next time. Those who don't learn anything from their investments don't make it far. The corners of my mouth turned up of their own accord. You truly are the real thing. I'll take that as a compliment. Barton stood up and promptly left the room, along with the account where the biggest earnings I'd ever made were supposed to go. He suddenly stopped with his hand on the door handle. Are you sure you don't need that option? Fuck you. Barton laughed as he left. The room instantly became quiet. It was so spacious and quiet that I could nearly hear my ears buzzing. Right now, only Hagana and I were here, separated by the door to the main bedroom. 8 years ago, when a thin door separated Hagana and me from the rest of the church, it felt as if we were the only ones there in the universe. But now, it only felt as if I was all alone in the universe. Nothing could be heard on the other side of the door. It was to the point that if I were told there was nobody there anymore, I wouldn't be surprised, because I knew just how much Hagana hated me compared to Barton. I willed my heavy limbs into a standing position and staggered toward the door of the main bedroom. It was a thick, imposing door. I'd been there before with Eleanor, so I knew what to expect behind it in terms of rooms and furniture, but I didn't want to check what it looked like now. I was scared to. I tried calling out, but I couldn't. I didn't even know what I should say, or if I even have any right to. Even though I had paid an unbelievable sum of money just to have this opportunity, I couldn't even get a single word out. Hagana had been freed from her contract with Barton. However, this was merely the result of someone unrelated to her paying a lot of money, independently of what she wanted herself. How was that any different from when she had been bought from Earth as a child? It wasn't like Hagana had begged for my help. On the contrary, she had refused to stay within my view and had merely returned a dim gaze when I called her name. I had no idea what to do, but I did know how I wanted things to go. I wanted to apologize to Hagana. I wanted her to smile and forgive me. I wanted her to say that she'd been looking forward to seeing me. If she did, I would pound on that door this instant and insist on seeing her, even if it meant prying the door open myself. But deep down, I was fully aware of the situation. Hagana hated my guts. Shouldn't I just back out? I was such an idiot. Tears started welling up in my eyes as I hung my head in shame. I looked up in an attempt to stop them from falling. That was when it happened. The door suddenly swung open. Since she obviously hadn't noticed I was there, Hagana was startled like a stray cat in an alleyway. Her facial expression then smoothed over until she wasn't showing anything, not even anger. Indifference, apathy. Hagana spoke up in a level and matter-of-fact tone. Move. But when she noticed my lack of reaction, her expression darkened somewhat, and she ended up smoothly slipping through a gap around me exactly as a cat would. It was completely by chance that my hand managed to grab her wrist. I had reached out behind me without looking, and I had done so without even thinking. What? That shook me up for the first time since I'd gotten here. As I nearly let go of her, there was but one thought inside my blank mind. If I didn't hold on now, I would never get another chance to. Let me go. Her restrained tone was starting to show signs of anger. She wasn't trying to forcibly shake me off because she probably remembered the difference in strength between us 8 years ago, even though right now it was probably reversed due to the time she spent on Earth. Memories were a powerful force that tied people down. I resolved myself, braced for impact, and turned around toward Hagana. I have questions. Hagana looked down at her captive wrist, gradually allowing her aversion to show on her face. Perhaps she remembered how stubborn I was, but she ended up looking away, sighing, before reluctantly replying in a small voice. What? That was when I realized I hadn't thought about what to ask her. Or rather, to be more exact, I had tons of questions. Things like what she had been up to until now, why she had joined forces with Barton, or what she was trying to accomplish by doing so. However, those weren't the things I truly wanted to ask. What I wanted to ask was completely different. It was something nastier and stupidly vulgar, but also much more important to me. Why did you do such things? Such things? Much like she used to, she narrowed her eyes and stared at me dubiously in irritation. In her place, the smooth-talking Eleanor would have probably said something like, "Well, isn't the situation I'm currently being put in similar to what you're referring to?" The biggest earnings in my entire life have been... Did you hate me that much? Did you despise me? I was afraid of how I would react if she were to tell me if she did, but I couldn't bear not asking her. Hagana then merely replied, That was the most efficient way. I briefly wondered if she meant this had been the most efficient way to torment me, but somehow, I felt that it wasn't what she meant. The most efficient? Yes, that guy's plans and mine matched perfectly. I've merely entrusted my goal to the person most suited to help me accomplish it. Who that person was didn't matter. That could also be interpreted to mean that she hadn't done this out of spite against me. But aside from that optimistic explanation, that could just as easily mean that Hagana had never simply cared about me. If you're done, let me go. Taken by surprise, I promptly opened my mouth to continue the discussion. As I did so, I thought I probably looked just like a child about to be abandoned. But if this wasn't about me, then you... My mind was a mess, and the only words coming out of my mouth were haphazard. There was no way I could hold Hagana's attention like that. Her expression was becoming increasingly grim. As I desperately attempted to find things to ask her, I recalled her words from a moment ago. Then, you also want to take down Emerald Industries, like Barton? That question seemed to catch Hagana's interest, if only a little. I don't care about Emerald Industries. Even 8 years ago, Hagana never explained things thoroughly. Just thinking about it, that seemed doubtful. What could she mean by saying that she had the same objective as Barton, who's trying to make Emerald Industries surrender, while at the same time having no interest in them herself? I didn't get it at all. However, the reason I was shaken by that was because Hagana wasn't the type to lie. If she had been like that, she would have already gotten away, even if that meant having to gnaw her own arm off to get herself free. In that case, that meant there was a key to understanding those puzzling statements. I've answered your questions, let me go. Hagana said this and shook her arm. The gesture brought me back to my senses and I started. Yeah, but I've answered your questions. Keep your promise. As her black eyes pierced me, I instinctively let go of her. Hagana, not yet used to lower gravity, lost her balance somewhat, but she quickly regained her footing and readjusted her sleeve with a displeased look. As for me, my heart was so filled with thoughts about Hagana that I was rapidly starting to lose sight of what I really wanted to ask her. Hagana was slowly making her way toward the door. My mouth opening right at that moment was basically a conditioned reflex. Where? It didn't matter, did it? Though that answer was resonating in my ears, her actual reply was different. Shopping. That awfully pragmatic answer took me aback, but thanks to it, my mind managed to refocus a bit. What about money? I have my room key. It can also be used as a credit card. Hagana gave that answer and put her hand on the doorknob. Upon realizing that meant the conversation was over, a feeling of grief washed over me again, so strong it made me want to burst into tears. It felt as if everything was about to end, just like that. It was probably because I was aware there was nothing I could say to stop her. Right as I was about to call her to a halt in a panic, a shrill ringing noise came from my breast pocket. It was so sudden that both my eyes and my attention shifted to my pocket. With that brief lapse of focus, I lost my chance to call out to Hagana. When I looked back up, Hagana had already left. My phone was still ringing. Annoyed by how it stubbornly kept ringing, I angrily looked at its screen. It was Gazanika. I had to take that call. Besides, I could only blame myself for what had transpired with Hagana. Hello. I hadn't spoken right away because I thought he might have been able to hear from my tone how shaken I was. Where are you right now? When I called your office, I was told you were out. I'm at the Royal Central Hotel. I see. It's good that you're nearby. Could you come right away? Why? As I gazed at the door through which Hagana had left, I hesitated a bit. I'd like you to make this your top priority. We won't make any profit, but I'd say we'll still earn quite a bit. What? Gazanika, trying to keep his voice down, replied to my question. Did you two make a killing? Huh. Haven't you made off with enough money to crush the casino? Gazanika's enraged voice sent my mind reeling for a brief instant. However, it was Gazanika's yelling that forced my mind to switch gears. Bull stares, one of the biggest investment banks is on the brink of death and it's imminent. One of the biggest investment banks on the brink of death? What kind of joke was that? Of course I had worried about that possibility when I had bought 140 million moles worth of protection from Herald Brothers. I had wondered whether they'd be able to pay the money they'd owe me. But that was merely the thinking of a dim-witted donkey. There was no way that a major investment bank whose assets were over tens of billions of moles would run out of money after paying me, which is why I asked again. Are you serious? I wish I were joking too. That snapped me out of it. It was really happening. I still couldn't quite come to terms with it, probably because I couldn't quite imagine what consequences it would have. The major investment banks are the backbone of the economy, you know. They take care of tens of thousands of transactions every day. If they were to go bankrupt, a lot of companies would become unable to function the following day, and that would have serious consequences for the economy. I know that. Gazanika shouted that, before taking a deep breath to allow himself to calm down. Sorry. Anyway, that's why I'm currently gathering talented people I can trust to help me deal with this. Because of that medical report, all the old folks who were in charge have fled the lunar surface, not to them. We don't have enough hands. I'm contacting everyone I know. Marco is already on his way. Gazanika paused briefly. Might have been because he would have collapsed out of sheer stress if he hadn't. I know that's really sudden, but they are at death's door and that's apparently an established fact. Still, it's so unexpected that even they seem to have a hard time grasping the situation. Even I'm aware that, as you said, investment banks are the backbone of the economy. However, we've never seen a situation where one of them could collapse. It's never been anything more than a hypothetical. Which is why I've been told, to be honest, if we don't really get our heads around what's happening, things are going to get particularly ugly, Mr. President. By who? Someone recommended by Marco. Apparently he's nicknamed the King of Pessimism. Dr. Wallace. That's him. I heard he had health problems, but he's really good at directing people. He's distributing the staff very precisely. I'm not very good at interacting with sulky people like him, but in any case, he told me to bring you here as soon as possible. Dr. Wallace himself had said things were going to get particularly ugly. That hardcore weirdo who giggled as he bet all he had on the end of the world had said that. Inside the quiet room that Hagana had left, I looked around me again and again like a lost dog. If the doctor had said that, then it was neither a joke nor an exaggeration. I'll be waiting for you at the General Government Building. Gazanika said that and hung up. Though obviously I was supposed to head for the government building right away after the call ended, I was still inside the hotel room Hagana had left. After some hesitation, I used the old-fashioned memo pad and fountain pen stuck near the room's phone to write a message and stuck it in the door to the main bedroom. I'll come again. Believing that would establish a small link between us, I left the room behind. Once again today, there were fewer people than usual, making Newton City feel unpleasantly cold. As directed, I headed straight for the General Government Building. It was just in front of the hotel. The building was simple, and as one would expect a lunar surface where government tended to go, ignored. There usually weren't many people there. But today, the absence of people was somewhat weird. Even though every single person I could see was just running around, their numbers were abnormally low. I'd seen a sight like this somewhere before. In a movie. It looked just like a town where most of the population had fled because of an encroaching war front. That was what was in my head as the security guard took me to Gazanika's office. Upon arriving, I noticed that this was where everyone was gathered. There were people sitting on the ground, and some others sleeping leaning against the wall, but no one seemed to mind. Everyone who was awake and standing had at least 2 tablets near their ears and were either searching for data or giving people instructions. Hal! The moment I took a step inside the office, Gazanika's characteristic voice called out my name. And the group around him, looking for all the world like a crowd waiting impatiently for a delayed train, turned around as one and looked at me. Many were younger than me. About what we discussed on the phone. Let's talk in the back room. Gazanika took me to the back room at once. It was a dedicated room, furnished with a huge, imposing desk that gave it a sense of purpose. Since successive presidents were all Earth-born men of a certain age, it must have been made that way on purpose. Once the door was closed, the tumult was completely shut out. I was contacted 13 hours ago in the night. Gazanika closed the door by pressing his back to it and said that. It was one of the vice presidents of a big investment bank, Bull Stairs. He said that they were nearly out of working capital, that at this pace, in 4 days, they would be out of business. I couldn't swallow what I was being told. I could understand it, but not accept it. I answered Gazanika with a serious look. He laughed. I bet you don't understand what he's saying, right? I didn't understand what I was being told either, and even talking to another person didn't change anything. Anyone who can understand that must be in the orbital elevator right now. But 3 hours later, that VP called back and he said this. In 4 days, when the market opens, our bank will collapse at the same time. In consequence, Gazanika took a deep breath and sighed. Could we expect assistance from the government? No way, I almost said. I held it back since I was standing in front of the president. Is that for real? Yes, it seems like they are really about to go bankrupt. I couldn't believe it. But Gazanika suddenly opened a desk drawer and took out a cigarette, putting it in his mouth before continuing. Sorry for the breach of decorum. I haven't slept in a while either. He must have also been dealing single-handedly with all the proceedings regarding the inspection of Emerald Industries. I was aware myself, deep into my flesh and bones, of how hard such problems could be in non-public places. Given what happened with Avalon, even for a tough guy like Gazanika, this had to be hard to handle. Gazanika lit his cigarette, prying his forehead with one hand as if to hold back his headache, then closed his eyes for a few seconds before raising his head and speaking. I can't understand the more technical parts. I'm no economist, but there is one thing I know. First, Bull Stairs is really on the verge of bankruptcy. Second, they most likely can't do anything about it on their own. Third, Gazanika took a drag and blew out his words on the smoke. It must not be allowed to go bankrupt. I stared back at Gazanika. Choosing to let Bull Stairs go bankrupt was unthinkable. They held close to a total of 30 billion moles in assets, and including the Earth, they had more than 10,000 employees and several thousand customers. Every day they sent immense amounts of money to companies throughout the world, not just the lunar surface, and these companies relied on this money to stay in business. Not only that, every day they handled thousands upon thousands of deals and payments of a great variety of financial products. If all of that stopped out of the blue, it would surely mean chaos. No, it would be worse than mere chaos. Suppose there were 100 companies counting on receiving funds from Bull Stairs. There must be 10 times that many companies counting on receiving funds from those first 100. And it might go further than that. Companies expecting payment from those companies. This showed just how our economy was tied together. An investment bank such as Bull Stairs is pretty much the heart of such a giant financial network. If one were to stop a heart as big as Bull Stairs, there was a risk of shutting down the lunar surface's economy. Let it go bankrupt, you mean? He said it was unthinkable, thinking of pessimism. I agree. I can at least understand that much, but having them counting on the assistance of the government is problematic. Surely you're aware, too, of how powerless the government of the lunar surface is. This is not Earth. The lunar surface government, both hands tied, its authority watered down. It was generally considered nothing more than an emergency counter to deal with countries on Earth. Companies who had their headquarters on the lunar surface tended to be larger in scale, and the profits and the employment opportunities they created were indispensable to the lunar surface. But they wouldn't be bothered by the absence of government. That's how it works here. But then, what to do? There was only one possible answer. But it sounded way too unrealistic. This was such a delicate and complex problem that there were giant investment groups and major law firms who specialized in these cases alone. But this was the only option that came to mind. I gazed back at Gazanika. Gazanika nodded with obvious displeasure. In the end, no matter who I asked, they all say that someone has to buy it off. If their operating funds were to go dry up in 4 days, that meant they had nearly no money left in their accounts. I didn't know the cause, but without funds, they wouldn't be able to stay in business and would have to claim bankruptcy. But if Bull Stairs did that, then the economy of the entire lunar surface would suffer a heart attack. That was why they needed someone to take over their operations. As Economica said, they had no choice but to let themselves be bought off by some company who would manage them. Is there even a candidate? I mean, even without thinking about the scale, we don't have much time, right? Purchasing a company was extremely complex. Normally, even evaluating the price alone took several months. But Bull Stairs only had 4 days left. I couldn't believe any company would make a decision like that in such a short time. Yes, even with a time limit of 4 days, a company has stepped up. Which company was it? E.J. Rochberg. The biggest commercial bank on the lunar surface. This was where Chris worked. I nodded, thinking that they did indeed have a chance of making this work. But Bull Stairs will probably try to struggle to the bitter end. There's a difference between funds drying up and being unable to continue operations, especially with business going into the red, right? Indeed. Even if they were profitable, there are cases of businesses failing because they lacked operational funds. That vice president was shrieking that if he had money, they'd manage. If they could pull through this one, they'd manage. By the way, how much do they need to pull through? I tried asking. Economica responded with a pleasant smile. They said they would need 40 billion moles for starters, and that would only get them through a few days, and they don't know how much they would need after that. I intuitively understood that the crisis was not due to paying off our gamble. The sum of money involved was far too big. This smelled like a more systematic problem. A crisis hard to avoid for any place that calls itself a bank. Could it be that a bank runs happening? The king of pessimism was also saying something like that. A bank run, you mean like what happened on Earth a few decades back? Economica must have been picturing a long line in front of a bank teller's window, like in those clunky black and white movies. A stampede of account holders got worried about the bank's health and tried to withdraw their money before the bank went under. People who saw the line got even more worried and the line got longer. But a bank's business was based on gathering money from account holders, lending that money to companies and claiming interest. If every single account holder came in at once, it would be impossible for the bank to give their money. As a result, even if the bank's management was sound, they would get drained of all their funds and die. This had happened many times in the past. Even now, bank runs were still a thing. Furthermore, they were not limited to commercial banks operating on deposit money. In layman's terms, a bank run was a vulnerability, in the system where one performed a long-term investment based on funds that could be withdrawn on short-term. Even if the bank was told out of the blue to give back the money, they couldn't claim the money that they had invested that fast. This logic also applied to investment banks, with more than 10,000 customers and several hundreds of thousands of payments every day. Timing mismatches must be occurring. There must be quite a few days when they only got 1 million moles worth of deposits, but saw more than 10 million leave the bank. To top it all off, an investment bank's account was loaded with the funds of the world's fastest investors. If anything happened, they ran away much faster than normal depositors. The sums involved were on a whole different scale too. And something problematic occurred on the lunar surface. 40 billion moles wasn't really a huge amount for them to be asking. At any rate, I would like to ask you and the others to estimate the price for Bull Stairs. You mean, a valuation of assets. If we let the concerned parties, Bull Stairs and E.J. Rochberg, handle this on their own, things most certainly won't settle properly. They are in vastly different positions after all. But if the government agrees to stand between them, they must be able to be a little more rational. We must at least have this much utility value. Economica laughed sarcastically. He looked like a wolf assaulting a half-dead rabbit, but unfortunately the world wasn't as simple as that. If E.J. Rochberg tried to take advantage of Bull Stairs' weakness by buying it for a too low a price, Bull Stairs shareholders may refuse the buyout. It sometimes happened that one chose death rather than being taken advantage of. Companies were managed by human beings, after all. Also, the whole of the lunar surface's economy must not be put in danger because of this. So is it really impossible to sustain Bull Stairs with the government money? There was a precedent for such things on Earth. That's referring to the Wall Street bailout. The government system must not be so different between the lunar surface and Earth, and the legal system must have been based on America's model. This was why I tried asking, but Gazanika merely sneered. The government doesn't have that kind of a budget, and even by chance we did gather that amount, this is a place where companies operate for their own profit. Why do you think we can give preferential treatment to bull stairs alone? Other companies won't stand for this. If the lunar surface could get this developed, you could argue that's because of the absence of government, or the fact that moneymakers were the most respected, was in some way an equitable state of things for quite a while. But if we gave money to bull stairs, this situation would break apart. We are actually letting real estate companies go bankrupt. Then we'd have to answer the question, why them alone? It would seem as unfair and might cause retaliation. For the government, this will probably be done by means of regulations and monitoring, which is precisely what everyone has collaborated to eliminate until now, so the lunar surface would develop further than Earth. Even MPs and cabinet ministers were affiliated with companies for the most part. Their job was to ensure for their masters that other companies didn't acquire unjust privileges, or to make things better for their companies if opportunities arose. Thanks to this tug-of-war, in the end a neutral situation had been maintained. The lunar surface was able to get rid of interference from the sort of unnecessary regulations and bureaucracy you got on Earth, and it managed to keep on developing itself. Government interference would mean turning back the clock of history. The only way we'll get our hands on any government money is if a giant hole appears in the lunar surface dome. Understood. I nodded, glancing at Gazanika as he called someone on his internal phone line.